some of the stories I've read about and some of the headlines I've heard in recent days. For example, and forgive me if I cry over this, I mean, who wouldn't cry once it really hits them? For example, a 9-year-old getting frankly murdered because a man decided to drive with a suspended license and he was gonna I mean, I guess he didn't mean to hit the girl, but he still hit her and then he ran and then he, as they reported, was already driving on a suspended license. So the girl was murdered in a vehicular homicide, and then the headline about Jewish people getting death threats because, hey, you know, we're Jewish, and hey, we have a land called Israel, and hey, the University of Michigan doesn't like that. And also another crass comment I saw about affirmative action in terms of the GI Bill and how the GI Bill was basically affirmative action for Jews, and it's just, you know, you see this stuff, and I was also even reading a headline, and I'm going to read the article later. I was reading a headline that some students had hired a hitman in order to avoid taking finals, and it's like, you just look at this world and you go, and I'm reminded of something that I was reading in the Talmud last night, not because I was reading the Talmud in of itself, but I mean I was trying to look up something in order to, it talks about, let's see, it says, and I'm trying to get the reference here so I can look up the context. Okay, so I talk about, alright, that, yeah, I'm not a, not a person who can really read Roman numerals here. So it talks about, oh, that's interesting. It says, for the spirit that enwrappeth itself is from me, and the souls which I have made. And of course that too reminds me of the whole thing where this woman was taping her abortion. Someone made a good point. You wouldn't dare, unless you were a sicko, tape an animal being murdered or abused, but you can tape an abortion like it's no big deal. And as that person said, how do you callously murder your own child and tape it? And I'm going to try to find the reference here, because like I said, I'm not very good with Roman numerals at all, but I'm going to look it up real quick. And let's see. Alright, okay, Roman numeral representing 57, so I'm going to look up Isaiah 57 here, and it talks about, oh, you know, I was thinking about this too when the little girl was murdered, and then I was reading about some kids who had cancer, and I just, you know, or I was reading a general comment about kids with cancer, and I just thought that these kids, in a sense, were just plain lucky, because it says, the righteous perishes, and no man takes it to heart. Merciful men are taken away, while no one considers that the righteous is taken away from evil. He shall enter into peace. They shall rest in their beds, each one walking in his uprightness. And I mean, that's, you know, that's a lot of kids in my own family. Many of them, as weird as it sounds, did not have to suffer what our family has suffered. And I just think about them too, because had they lived to have seen what, you know, just our family alone has gone through, and then what the world's like now, I don't know how they would make it. For example, I'm thinking about one of the siblings that my dad could have had. The sibling was miscarried. Michelle remembers that the sibling would have been an uncle to us. I do not remember a gender being specified or known. And then I'm thinking about my cousin Ryan. What would have happened if he had lived? Who knows? The whole situation is very precarious, but he did not have to suffer. He did not have to suffer what his mom and others have suffered. And it's just, you know, even hindsight's not 20/20, so. Oh, okay, yeah, it talks about the righteous perishes and no man takes it to heart. So even in terms of that little girl, yes, that guy who was awful did commit vehicular homicide, and in a way, though, she's home. She doesn't have to worry about cruel men hurting her anymore. She, she's in God's arms. And it talks about, he shall enter into peace, they shall rest in their beds, each one walking in his uprightness. So she's home. She's home. And, what else can you say? And, okay, it talks about, so we were talking, the original reference. Okay, Isaiah 57:16. It says, let's see, and one, okay, I'm going to start with 14. And one shall say, heap it up, prepare it away, take the stumbling block out of the way of my people. For thus says the high and lofty one, who inhabits eternity, whose name is holy. I will dwell in the high and holy place, with him who is a contrite and humble spirit, to revive the spirit of the humble, and to revive the heart of the contrite ones. For I will not contend forever, nor will I always be angry, for the spirit which would fail before me, and the souls which I have made. Okay, obviously, so the Talmud twisted that out of context. But, it does, the way the Talmud contextualize it is interesting, because, it does talk about, hey, life is life, and, you're seeing all this apostasy with the acceptance of abortion, like it's never been accepted before, and you're seeing a whole bunch of stuff which you never would have seen before otherwise, and there's no question that we're in the end of days. And, even some of the developments going on in Israel, and then last night they talked about there was an explosion. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing this right. There was an explosion in, Kazvin, and if anything happens, and I'm sure, in a way if it happens, well, it happened. In a way if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen, but I would not be surprised if the explosion in Kazvin does end up getting blamed on Israel, and that's when the Ezekiel 38 war starts. Nobody likes war, but by the same token, I'd rather have the Ezekiel 38 war come sooner than later, especially since it's going to be pretty brutal. And in terms of the war, if this doesn't explain nuclear power, I don't know what does. And, because I think it also talks about fire, and, because I'm going to look back in, let's see. Okay, so let's talk about this first. It says, and this shall be the plague with which Jehovah will strike all the people who fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall dissolve while they stand on their feet, their eyes shall dissolve in their sockets, and their tongues shall dissolve in their mouths. It shall come to pass in that day that a great panic from Jehovah will be among them. Everyone will seize the hand of his neighbor, and raise his hand against his neighbor's hand. Yehudah will also fight at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all the surrounding nations shall be gathered together, gold, silver, and apparel in great abundance. And I suppose if I'm reading that correctly, you can connect that to Jeremiah or Yirmiyahu 16:19-21. And then not only that, but let's look at Ezekiel 38-39 for a minute, because I do believe it talks about fire. Let's see. Let me double check that, because I don't want to get this wrong. Anyway, I'll let the phone go there. Let's see. And, it says here, oh yeah, it talks about fire a lot. And, okay, for example, they will not take wood from the field, nor cut down any from the forest, because they will make fires with the weapons, and they will plunder those who plunder them, and pillage those who pillage them. Boy, that sounds like nuclear power. So, anyway, yeah, things are really coming to a hit, and, what else can I say? I guess that's that, and also, I guess on a lighter note, I have a picture of my puppy. I'm going to put the picture in the description, and that's that.